Hello everyone. What if the legends were true? For centuries we've been told that Amazonian warriors and fierce Viking Shieldmaidens were just myths. Fantastical stories of women who lived for battle, commanded armies, and stood equal to any man on the field of war. But what if the history we've been told is only half the story? What if these weren't just campfire tales, but the distorted echoes of a forgotten truth? New archaeological discoveries are shattering old beliefs, revealing that these formidable female fighters weren't just legends. They were real. Today, we're digging up the buried truths of the women who defied their times and carved their names into the history of warfare. The word Amazon conjures images of mythical warrior women, famous for battling Greek heroes like Heracles and Achilles. For thousands of years, that's where they stayed, in the pages of mythology. But it turns out history was hiding in plain sight. Across the Eurasian steppes, archaeologists found ancient graves belonging to a nomadic people known as the Scythians. And inside these graves were the skeletons of women, buried with a full arsenal of weapons, battle axes, daggers, and quivers full of razor-sharp arrowheads. Their bones tell an even more vivid story. Some show fingers warped from the constant use of a bow and arrow, a habit that goes far beyond hunting. Others bear the brutal scars of battle, with arrowheads still lodged in their skeletons. This wasn't a rarity. A significant number of Scythian women were buried with weapons and showed signs of combat, with some scholarly estimates suggesting the figure is around 20 to 30%. For these cultures, female warriors weren't the exception. They were an accepted part of their society. As historian Bettany Hughes puts it, this evidence shows that there's truth behind the myths and legends of ancient Greece. The Greeks, encountering these formidable horsewomen on the edges of their world, likely spun their very real existence into the legends of the Amazons. A similar story is unfolding in Scandinavia, the heartland of the Vikings. Legends here speak of Shieldmaidens, women who fought alongside men. For a long time, these figures were also dismissed as fantasy. That is, until a grave in Boudicca, Sweden gave up its secrets. Discovered in the 1800s, it was the tomb of a high-ranking warrior, buried with a sword, an axe, spears, and 2 horses. A strategy board game was propped in their lap, suggesting they were a military commander. For over a century, everyone assumed this warrior was a man. But in 2017, DNA analysis delivered a stunner. The decorated warrior of Boudicca was a woman. This discovery doesn't prove that legions of Shieldmaidens existed exactly as depicted in the sagas, but it forces a complete re-evaluation of the Viking world. It suggests the legends were born from the lives of very real, very dangerous women who history tried, and failed, to forget. Long before the Scythians rode the steppes, one woman was commanding one of the ancient world's most powerful armies. Her name was Fu Hao, and she was a queen, a high priestess, and a top military general in the 13th century BC China. For a long time, just like the Amazons, many scholars thought she was a myth. But her story wasn't written on paper. It was etched into oracle bones and buried in an untouched royal tomb. Discovered in 1976, the tomb of Fu Hao was a breathtaking find. It was the only unlooted royal tomb from the Shang dynasty, and its contents were staggering. Over 130 weapons, hundreds of bronze objects, and thousands of jade artifacts. But the real story came from the oracle bones, tortoise shells used for divination. Inscriptions on these bones, posed as questions from her husband, King Wu Ding, painted a picture of her incredible life. They revealed Fu Hao wasn't just one of the king's 60 wives, she was his most trusted general. At a time when women's roles were heavily restricted, Fu Hao led numerous successful military campaigns involving as many as 13,000 soldiers. She was no figurehead. She was a brilliant tactician credited with leading the earliest recorded large-scale ambush in Chinese history. She was so respected that when she died, 16 people and 6 dogs were sacrificed to accompany her into the afterlife, a testament to her immense status. Fu Hao's tomb ensures that this pioneering warrior will never again be mistaken for a myth. In the 6th century BC, Cyrus the Great had built the Achaemenid Empire, the largest the world had ever seen. He seemed unstoppable, until he met Tomyris. Tomyris was the warrior queen of the Massagetæ, a nomadic people of the Central Asian steppes. Her story, recorded by the Greek historian Herodotus, is a brutal lesson in underestimating an opponent. Cyrus wanted to expand his empire and sent Tomyris a marriage proposal. She saw right through it. He wanted her kingdom, not her hand, and refused him. So Cyrus marched his army to her borders. Herodotus writes that Tomyris sent a message offering a fair fight on either side of the river. Instead, Cyrus set a trap. He left a camp filled with wine, knowing the Massagetae were unaccustomed to it, and pretended to retreat. A group of Massagetae soldiers, led by Tomyris' own son, Spargapeses, fell for the trick. They drank themselves into a stupor and were easily captured. When Tomyris learned of this treachery, she was enraged. She sent Cyrus a message, "Bloodthirsty Cyrus, to give me my son back. If you do not, I swear by the sun, I will give you your fill of blood." But it was too late. Her son, shamed by his capture, took his own life. Heartbroken and filled with a cold fury, Tomyris gathered her entire army and met Cyrus in what Herodotus called the fiercest battle he'd ever heard of. The Massagetae, led by their vengeful queen, completely overwhelmed the Persians. The Achaemenid army was destroyed, and Cyrus the Great was killed. But Tomyris' revenge wasn't complete. True to her word, she found Cyrus's body, severed his head, and plunged it into a wineskin filled with human blood, proclaiming, "Drink your fill of blood!" She shattered the myth of Persian invincibility and delivered a chilling lesson to one of history's most powerful men. While Tomyris fought against the Persian Empire about 50 years later, another queen fought for it. Her name was Artemisia of Caria, and she was a naval commander, a brilliant strategist, and the only female commander in King Xerxes' massive fleet during his invasion of Greece in 480 BC. Ruling her own kingdom, she personally commanded 5 ships, said to be among the best in the entire navy. As the Persians prepared for the decisive Battle of Salamis, Xerxes held a council of war. All of his male commanders urged him to attack the Greek fleet in the narrow straits, all except one. Artemisia argued against it, warning Xerxes that the smaller, more agile Greek ships would have the advantage in the tight space. Xerxes was impressed by her guts, but ultimately sided with the men. As Artemisia predicted, the battle was a disaster for the Persians. In the chaos, Artemisia's ship was being chased by an Athenian vessel. Trapped, she made a ruthless move. She ordered her crew to ram a friendly Persian ship that was in her way. The Athenian captain, seeing one Persian ship sink another, assumed Artemisia's vessel was a Greek ally and broke off the chase. Xerxes, watching from a throne on the shore, saw the move but completely misinterpreted it. Thinking she had sunk an enemy ship, he famously remarked, "My men have become women, and my women, men." After the devastating loss, a shaken Xerxes again asked for her advice. This time he listened. She advised him to retreat from Greece, a move that likely saved the rest of his army. Artemisia was more than a warrior. She was a master of strategy and survival whose clear-eyed counsel earned her the respect of an emperor. Why do you think these incredible stories were so often overlooked or dismissed as myths? If you're finding these buried truths as fascinating as we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more, and let us know in the comments which of these warriors inspires you the most. In 60 AD, Britain was a brutally managed province of the mighty Roman Empire. But for one woman, Roman oppression wasn't just political, it was deeply personal. Her name was Boudicca, queen of the Iceni tribe. Her story, recorded by the Roman historian Tacitus, is one of the most ferocious rebellions in Roman history. It all started with an act of profound cruelty. Boudicca's husband, King Prasutagus, tried to protect his family by leaving his kingdom jointly to the Roman emperor and his own daughters. He hoped it would keep them safe. It did the opposite. After he died, Roman officials seized the kingdom, flogged Boudicca publicly, and brutally raped her 2 young daughters. This monstrous injustice lit a fire of vengeance across the land. Spurred by the outrage, Boudicca roused the Iceni and neighbouring tribes to war. Driving a chariot with her daughters beside her, she became a terrifying symbol of resistance against a superpower. Her rage was matched by her effectiveness. Her rebel army burned the Roman colonies of Camulodunum, Colchester, Londinium, London, and Verulamium, St Albans, to the ground. The Roman historian Tacitus claims her forces killed somewhere between 70,000 and 80,000 Romans and their allies, numbers that are likely exaggerated, but still speak to the sheer brutality of the uprising. For a brief, bloody moment, it seemed Britain might actually be lost to Rome. Eventually, the full might of the Roman legions was brought to bear. In a final, decisive battle, Boudicca's massive but less disciplined army was crushed by the experienced Roman forces. Facing capture, Boudicca ended her own life with poison. Though her rebellion was defeated, Boudicca's legacy as a symbol of defiance against tyranny and a mother's righteous fury is eternal. 2 centuries after Boudicca's revolt, another queen rose to challenge Rome, this time from the sun-scorched sands of the Syrian desert. She was Septimia Zenobia, the Queen of Palmyra. During a period of chaos known as the Crisis of the 3rd century, Zenobia saw a chance to not just defy Rome, but to build an empire of her own. Ruling as regent for her young son, Zenobia was a woman of immense ambition and intellect. Initially, she played the part of a loyal Roman ally, but that was just a stepping stone. In 270 AD, she launched a stunning military campaign, conquering Egypt, much of Asia Minor, and the Roman East. She established the short-lived Palmyrene Empire and began minting her own coins, declaring herself and her son as Augusta and Augustus, the titles of a Roman empress and emperor. For 2 years, Zenobia ruled her empire, but Rome wasn't going to let that stand. The Roman Emperor Aurelian marched his legions east in 272 AD. Despite their courage, Zenobia's forces were defeated in 2 major battles by the superior Roman military machine. With her armies shattered, Zenobia retreated to the fortified city of Palmyra. As Aurelian laid siege, Zenobia escaped on a camel, hoping to make it to Persia and forge an alliance. But she was captured by Roman cavalry before she could get away. With her capture, Palmyra surrendered. Zenobia was paraded through Rome in golden chains during Aurelian's triumph. Her fate is debated, but her legacy is clear. She was a queen who dared to carve her own empire from the might of Rome. Our final story takes us to the 1st century Vietnam, then under the harsh rule of the Chinese Han dynasty. It's here that 2 sisters, Trung and Trung, became enduring national symbols of independence. Raised in a noble family, the sisters were educated in literature and trained in martial arts. The spark for their rebellion was, once again, a personal tragedy. Trung-Trak's husband was executed by the Chinese authorities for speaking out. In response, she and her sister Trung didn't retreat into mourning. They stepped forward to lead. They united local lords and peasant farmers against their common enemy. According to Vietnamese legend, their army swelled to 80,000 soldiers and was led by 36 female generals, including, some say, their own mother. In 40 AD, the rebellion exploded. The army, led by the 2 sisters, successfully captured over 65 Chinese citadels. They forced the Chinese governor to flee and, for 3 glorious years, established an independent state with themselves as co-queens. But the Han dynasty wouldn't tolerate such defiance. In 42 AD, a massive professional army was sent to crush the rebellion. The Trung sisters' forces, though courageous, were ultimately no match for the seasoned Chinese troops. After a series of defeats, the sisters were cornered. Rather than face capture, they committed suicide by drowning themselves in a river, a final act of defiance. Though their kingdom was short-lived, their legacy is immeasurable. The Trung sisters are revered as national heroines in Vietnam to this day, a powerful testament to sisterhood, patriotism, and the unyielding spirit of resistance. From the misty shores of Britain to the vast plains of Central Asia, history is filled with the echoes of women who wielded swords, commanded fleets, and led armies. For centuries their stories were dismissed as myth, diluted into folklore or erased from the records. But figures like Fu Hao, Tomyris, Boudicca, and the Trung sisters weren't anomalies. They were queens, generals, and rebels who proved that courage and genius have no gender. The evidence now confirms what the legends always hinted at. In every corner of the world and in every era, there were women who fought. Their stories aren't just the untold stories of female warriors. They are a vital, undeniable part of our shared human history.